Okay. All right. So my name is John Chu, and I'm still a licensed acupuncturist. I have a clinic in San Jose, California. And I practice what I call TrueCM. And the reason it's not, it doesn't mean I have the truth. It just means I practice Chinese medicine, what is true to me. Okay. I believe as practitioners, we can only cultivate what is true to us. And it is really our cultivation that get us to be able to treat. Because otherwise we're just following somebody else's instructions and protocols. And I believe a lot of us are seekers, and we have so much deeper feel for what we're doing. And if we just blindly follow some textbook or curriculum or protocols, we're missing a lot of stuff. And to me, a lot of the practitioners have this feeling. It's like that there's something that there's something much deeper that I'm feeling, but I'm not be able to express that. Okay, so and to me, I'm so grateful for today's opportunity to present this, and hopefully some of what I share that is true to me resonate with you, and you'll be able to integrate that into your own TrueCM. Okay, so today we talk about pause dissociation and what's so-called reptilian brain command release. Okay, so some of the references I use, all the channel work, all the channel discoveries and modes and stuff like that essentially come out of Dr. Janice Hadlock's work, her lifelong work, basically, based on her treatment of Parkinson patients and her own recovery of Parkinson's. She was able to shine tremendous light on channels. Okay, so she has a book on Tracking the Dragon that I read maybe 8 years ago. And I read and write Chinese. Chinese is my native language. But when I read many Chinese medical texts, and I always get very, very confused because to me, it's like, why did it work, right? What if it doesn't work? It's almost like I'm giving a camera, and this camera takes good pictures when it takes good picture, and takes bad ones when it takes bad ones, and I can't change it. I cannot repeat the good pictures, and I cannot fix the bad ones. But once I read Tracking the Dragon, Chinese medicine to me make perfect sense. Perfect sense. Okay. So all of a sudden, if it resonated with me so much that I attended Chinese medicine school and got my license. But I went through school not to learn, what the school was teaching, but really to essentially get a license to practice what I feel is true. So, if you're interested in this line of work, please do read Dr. Janice Hadlock's writings and books. The other book I would highly recommend is The Language of Emotions. Emotions are, all these talks about emotional intelligence and stuff like that, essentially, separate our emotions into, right and wrong, positive, negatives, and it just messes up. Okay, all emotions carry a message, and when we deeply embrace all our emotions, then we have the chance to get into, all the triggers within our subconscious, as well as all the wisdoms. So to me, emotions are our gateway into full revelation of who we truly are. So so with this, let's get started. Okay, so channels. So in order to talk about, pause dissociation and reptilian brain command releases and stuff like that, we need to dive a little bit deeper into channels. Okay, so channels are electrical in nature. Okay, and it follows all the electrical rules. It's fillable because these are microcurrents, and our hands, in the middle of our palm is pericardian, one of the pericardian channel point, 劳宫穴. So with this point, essentially, it goes into our pericardium, which is both a transmitter and receiver at the same time. So when we are not transmitting, meaning that we're not looking at our hands, we're not trying to figure out what we're feeling and we can actually feel very, very precisely, and everybody is different. I'm actually not as precise as many other people, including my students, but we can feel the channels, okay? We can feel how it runs, we can feel where it gets stuck, we can feel how it diverges and stuff like that, okay? And because channels are electrical, they respond instantly. Okay, they don't, like, okay, in the spring the liver flows whatever, no, it flows instantaneously. It changes instantaneously. Okay. So cancer patients may come in and their channels are very, very suppressed and everything else well blocked, right? And they can change instantaneously to something else. It has a lot to do with our mind. Okay, if I don't feel safe, my channel is not going to be thriving. Okay, but the moment I feel I have a purpose, and I do have a purpose. I have stage 4 cancer, and one of my lungs is removed. I have a purpose. Okay, I've been through all this, and I know I have a purpose. Immediately, the channel changes. REN channel and DO channels are thriving again. Okay, so it's very, very different. The person feels dramatically different. Okay, and because we're human and we have a mind and we judge and everything else, so channels can get stuck. Okay, so channels follows mostly, I would say, mostly our mind. How we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we see ourselves within the world. Okay, changes our channels dramatically. Okay. So in Su Wen, Chapter 13, there's a discussion on shifting of mind and changing of qi or channels. Okay, 素问 13, 移经变气论. Okay. So so in 素问 13, it has three of the 4 channel modes. Okay, it says it's so essentially it has 神明、原始、精神. Okay, so 神明 basically means godlike. So we can map into parasympathetic mode, okay, precisely. This is precisely what parasympathetic mode is in Western medicine, okay. Our vagus nerve is running dominantly, right, where we can rest and heal. We're close to, in the godlike mode, all the channels flow very close to what we learn in school, okay, except DO channel, okay. So DO channel during the day does not flow through the top of the head. Okay? There's no point during the day to flow through top of the head. Okay. Instead, it flows through the midbrain. Okay, basically enters at the back of the head and enters the midbrain, energize everything along the midbrain path, and come out of the third eye, and then continue its path into the mouth essentially. And in the godlike mode, all channels are thriving. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, liver qi goes through the, go through the groin area, go through the chest area, into the lung channel. Okay, we can breathe easy. Our circulations are working. All the fluids are being carried and transported and eliminated properly, right? Very interesting. Okay, so in the clinic, this is really the key, right? All the physical treatment, at least, right? I don't do really a physical treatment, but I do channel treatment. Okay, so the goal is to get the channels to run in this mode. Okay, and surprisingly, it doesn't really depend on the physical condition. Okay, it's not like this person needs to be healthy in order for the channels to run in godlike mode. No. Okay, the person can be again, stage 4 cancer, without a lung. The channels can run beautifully. Okay. Why? Because it's really our mindset. Okay. The next channel mode is 原始. Okay, 远 means far. Okay. 死 means death. Okay, so essentially it's a far from death. So this mode, maps to sympathetic mode. perfectly, fight and flight or freeze. Okay, so we learn in school there's a divergent channel. Okay, so the UB that's supposed to go from essentially the head, through our back, through the buttock, right, and all the way down to the heel, to the toe. In sympathetic mode, it actually, um, get to the knee, the back of the knee, and it, goes right back up to the kidney channel. Okay. And in the text, it will say it will actually strike the heart or strike the kidney and energize the heart or something like that, right? So that's essentially to generate adrenaline. Okay, so it makes perfect sense. Okay, this is in the text. Of course, in the old Chinese text, there's no term as adrenaline, but it does say, you essentially strike the kidney and activates or pumping the heart, right? So that's basically what adrenaline is doing, right? So all these modes, the parasympathetic mode, sympathetic mode, were well understood thousands of years ago. So in this mode, far from death, right, fight and flight, the pericardial channel actually changes. Okay, it actually causes liver qi stagnation or allows the, if we're really running from something, there's a, sense of suppression and we need to run away. So, there may be, for people, most people in sympathetic mode are actually not in the fighting mode, but in the flight mode. Okay, we're suppressing, we're depressing ourselves, and the pericardial channel will actually get stuck right at the PC1, right next to the nipple, especially on the left-hand side. And that lockup actually caused a higher electrical resistance. So the liver channel that's supposed to flow through there cannot, okay? And hence the liver qi stagnation, right? So liver qi stagnation, let me just bring this diagram. I don't want to go into detail, but liver qi stagnation is probably present in 99+% of our patients, okay? Because the education system, because of, we're not thriving mostly. But liver qi stagnation is not a liver problem, okay? It's how we see the world. It's the sense that we cannot thrive. It's the sense that, there's injustice and there's nothing I can do. And we're not doing what's most empowering. We will continue to try to do what's right. So then pericardial channel gets stuck, okay, liver gets stuck, liver qi gets stuck, right? And again, these are electrical in nature, almost like rivers. So the mighty liver river cannot flow through the chest, and guess what? It floods into the adjacent areas, okay, into the stomach, into other parts of the body, right? So if we, liver qi stagnation normally is treated as a liver excess liver condition, but it is not, right? Because if you look at the lung is deficient. So if we needle blindly, okay, liver 3, we're doing the patient a tremendous disservice. Okay? We don't want to drain the mighty liver channel. Okay, liver channel is beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, I digress a little bit. Let's come back here. Okay. So in the sympathetic mode, sometimes we get into righteousness and the spleen will actually get stuck right underneath the lower rib. So our the heart is actually deficient. And when the heart is deficient, we're not loving, we're not kind. Okay. When we're when we try to get as far away from death as possible, we're not operating in loving and kind mode, mostly. Okay. But we can, even though, but most of the time we just need to save our life. Right. And instead, the gallbladder channel and the UB channel in the head are actually, far more active, right? Because we need to judge what's going on. We need to make split-second decision to save us, to run as far away from danger as possible. So in the clinic, when a person is in high sympathetic mode, okay, digestion is not supposed to work. Okay. When we're running away from danger, digestion is not allowed almost, right? The sense of hunger even, right? So a lot of these chronic digestion issue, digestion tract issues like small intestine bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, and all these issues, including, diarrheas or constipations, all kinds of these, it seems like, why, all the needles and all the herbs and all the whatever treatments don't work, right? And to me, this, check this person, talk to this person. You know, they may be in chronic sympathetic mode for a long, 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 long time. So to me, because I really don't have a whole lot of patients and I really just got started, right? So everyone I see are basically being treated by many, many people before, and a lot of times when they come here, I honestly, I don't know how to treat a lot of these issues. But if we get to the root of these issues, they naturally get better, okay? So to me, in different modes, right, especially if it's chronic, again, far from death, right, this mode, sympathetic mode, fight and flight mode, is very, very important, right? When we are in that situation where we're supposed to fight or flight or freeze, right, we do that. The problem is we get stuck. Okay, all the channel modes are beautifully designed, are beautiful for each and every situation that we can encounter. But the issue is we, I'll introduce my framework that I use. It's like, why do we get stuck? Okay, so this manifests into high blood pressure, circulation issues, depression, aggression, addiction, right? Because we're in the surviving mode. The mode that's not mentioned in Suwen 13 is actually the sleep mode, okay? But in sleep mode, the DU channel actually goes as diagrammed, or as we learn in the Chinese medicine school, it actually goes, through the top of the scalp. Why? Because then the brain doesn't have a whole lot of energy, okay? When we sleep, and if the DU channel is really thriving, we can't sleep, okay? We're just full of thoughts and just continue to be awakened, okay? And yeah, and there's different channel, that's, in channels are like endless loop, right? And we have this channel clocks and stuff like that, and it matches sleep precisely, right? So gallbladder channel goes, gallbladder channels are leading, meaning that it really goes, down from the head to the toe vigorously around 11 o'clock. And that's when we are drowsy and, try to sleep, right? And just couldn't resist to sleep almost, right? But by 1 o'clock, when liver channels start to be dominant, right, we can't sleep. So if there's a window where it's best for us to go to sleep, right? If we miss that window, it's very, very difficult to sleep. And that's why, right? And around 5 o'clock in the morning, the stomach channel actually, become more vigorous. And then would go through, around the mouth, it actually strike, right? It stimulate the DU channel to get the DU channel back into the midbrain again. So, so ideally, if we follow this channel clocks, our sleep cycles will be, just very, very natural, right? It just follows the channel, right? And of course, not everybody can or are, or is willing to. But anyway, that's the sleep mode. And then this is the mode that basically very few people are exposed to, and which I think is so important, right? So this is in Suwen 13, they have this term, okay, Jing Sen. Okay, Jing means near or close, okay. Sen means life, okay. So it's close to life. So pause mode is designed for us to be close to life, okay. So an example is like, let's say I'm a mouse, I'm being chased by a cat, right? And when I'm running and trying to invade this cat, right? I'm in sympathetic mode. I'm in fight and flight. My blood is my heart rate is high, blood is pumping, right? cholesterol or sugar level, everything is high, right? Because I need to run. I need all the energy I can muster to run away from this cat. But let's say I'm caught, right? And the cat's claw perforated my skin, even sever my one of my vein or artery, for example. Instantaneously, and again, instantaneously, this has to be done instantaneously. I go into pause mode, okay? So in pause mode, this is actually described in one of the Chinese texts, is the Du channels serve as a reservoir of all channels, okay? What does that mean, right? So in pause mode, all the channels, all the 12 channel plus the REN channel, whoosh, goes into the Du channel. As for what, right? For either we're going to come back to life or we're going to die, okay? If we died, all this energy, shoots out of, basically shoots out of a third eye or something like that, okay? It follows the Du channel path and we leave this body, as a bunch of energy, okay? So in pause mode, right, my heart rate goes from 200 beats per minute to 40, right? My blood pressure goes way down and right? And all of a sudden I'm rigid, right? Instead of running and hiding and, doing everything I possibly can, boom, I basically represent a dead body that's so rigid and cold and everything else. Am I dead? No, I'm not dead yet, right? So if the cat is well-fed and just want a toy, and after a while it leaves, then I'll come back to life. Okay, and coming back out of this pause mode has 5 criteria that I'll go into. Okay, do we see that in people? Absolutely. Okay, animal cannot get stuck in pause mode. People can. Okay, dissociation is a natural response to injuries. Okay? Very, very natural. I mean, we all have dissociated before. If I roll my ankle, right, going down a hike, or roll ankle during a game or something like that, and I look at the coach and the coach goes, go, 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 we're very close to winning, go, 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 right? Boom, all of a sudden I can run, right? Or we're emotionally dissociated, right? The parents are, very, very demanding, and after years of, or, after trying so hard to say, I'm not going to follow this, I'm not going to follow this, all of a sudden we disconnect from this. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to follow everything, but I'm not in my body. I'm not here. I will do it, but I'm not here. Okay. Do we see this? Absolutely. Okay. In people from, teenagers especially, right? They will do things, their body will do things, but they're not there to do it. Okay. And during a life and death situation, for example, an accident where I see a tree, right, that I'm gonna hit, or I get pinned down during an assault, right, my reptilian brain will continue to issue commands, reflex commands to say, okay, get your right hand, cover your eyes, cover your nose, cover your face, and so you don't hit the windshield wiper with it, right? Or when I'm pinned down during assault, raise my arm, hit the throat, poke the eyes, and but I couldn't do any of those. And reptilian brain commands, because they're so primitive, right? If they're not executed, they're actually, so again, this is my truth, okay? You please consider this and see if it resonates, okay? Unfinished or not executed reptilian brain commands become pending in the body. So in the clinic, we see rigidity, right? We see people jerking motions, okay? When they are quiet, when we hold their hands without any expectation, right? We just feel this hand just keep moving, by itself. Okay. And when people feel this, it's almost like there's another entity within their body, that's moving, and they have to control it. So it's very, very so pause, dissociation, and the presence of pending reptilian commands, to me are, if we see like very, very interesting issues in the clinic, right? This mode should be considered. Okay. And we can enter this mode from multiple conditions. Okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay. So some of the conditions that we see, in the clinic, that's basically when people get stuck in this close to life pause dissociation modes, are Parkinson's, that's for sure. Okay, it's just the person just gets stuck in the pause mode. Okay, PTSD, sometimes people get into that. They may go in and out of pause mode. Okay, pause mode is not for some people, it's not a consistent. Okay, panic attack can, very close to pause mode. Okay. And people in pause, essentially the do channel is not flowing through the midbrain, is not allowed to flow through the midbrain. Okay. If I'm a mouse and I'm being caught, right, and I become, I go into this pause mode and I'm rigid and everything else, my midbrain cannot have the proper energy, because otherwise I'll be hopeful, I'll be loving, I'll be kind. Okay. So when the midbrain doesn't have the sufficient channel energy, we suffer, we can suffer autoimmune system issues, auto function issues. Okay, meaning our breathing is not automatic anymore. Okay, because in pause, my breathing cannot be detected by the cat, for example, right? Some of the symptoms may be addiction, right? Dark thoughts, suicidal tendencies, apathy, rage, rigidity is for sure. Okay, and it can be partial as well. For example, one of the elbows, right? And pretty much all the pause condition will result. One of the things that will be for sure is the stiffness of the neck, the stiffness of the entire spine. Okay. And I'll go into detail why. Okay. So that's the full mode. Okay. And again, in Suan 13, they mention a term called 四时. Okay, it means 4 times. Okay, 时 just means time. It's normally translated, and I look at least 4 or 5 translations. They're all translated into 4 seasons. Okay, it's like the channels shifts and moves and changes based on the 4 seasons. Okay, this cannot be further from the truth. Okay, so the misunderstanding of this 4 times or 4 conditions honestly messed people up. And it messed up basically the entire Chinese medicine population. Okay, channels do not move or respond or change based on the seasons. They change based on the 4 possible conditions: parasympathetic, sympathetic, sleep, pause, or dissociation. And they have to, right? So a really healthy person, meaning that we don't hold grudges, we're not in judgmental mode, we're not stuck mentally, right? Our channels respond based on whatever condition we're in. And then we revert back to, godlike condition when nothing else is going on. When we go home, lock the door, have a meal, we're going back to godlike rest and heal, parasympathetic mode. So the fluidity of the channels become very, very important. Okay. So, so we kind of mentioned about this. Okay. Let me talk a little bit about this picture. Okay, so in this picture, I captioned "Peace is embracing truth from all sides." Okay. You know, we get into righteousness because we are right. You know, and my truth is the only truth, and that causes endless amount of suffering, endless amount of problems. Okay, countries go to war because they're both right. You know, they both have the truth. Uh, uh, okay. All right. So in order for me, so I have, you know, so I learn all these, right? I learn channels and data, right? And um I learn things and you know, intuitively or something like that, it's like, okay, I need to consider everything that contribute to the channels, right? In order to treat based on channels. So this is my current framework, okay, that I use in the clinic to address basically any issues that I see, and to use this diagram to actually cultivate myself. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit, and then we get back to pause dissociation and reptilian brain command release. Okay, so we have five senses, right? We have ear, eye, nose, tongue, and our body, physical body, right? So the stimulus may come in, right? We receive these from our five senses, right? And all, you know, actually well, um, so the five senses plus our thought, okay, whatever thought that we have. For example, the world is not safe, or, or all people are beautiful, or something like that, right? Whatever thought that we have, right? We'll get into our brain, okay? Our brain is, we brain, you know, we essentially have four categories of brain. Okay, we have the reptilian brain, limbic brain, and the frontal cortex, which has separated into midbrain and left and right brain. Okay, and why? Because they, from a channel standpoint, that makes perfect sense. Okay. For years, you know, even up to now, I'm really like, you know, I'm being, you know, I still find it fascinating that the brain doesn't develop, you know, it's like they get bigger and bigger and more complex, right? But instead, it's almost like, you know, we got this primitive reptilian brain and then put on a helmet, right? And it's called the limbic brain, and then put on another helmet, right? And it's the frontal cortex, right? And they maintain pretty much their own function as it should, right? Very, very interesting, okay? So anyway, so the external stimulus plus the internal thought, which is another stimulus, right? And also our body as well, okay? You know, generate electrical impulses or whatever, right? So transmit it into our brain, right? So the first brain it receives is the reptilian brain, right? Because it is indeed the fastest. It needs to, you know, respond based on our reflex, okay? So the R right here is our reflex. It's like a database, right? That stores all the reflex that we, you know, so we can actually train our reflex, okay? Reflex can be trained, right? And then it goes to our limbic brain, right? And it generates emotions based on all the triggers that we have installed, okay? And then it goes to the frontal cortex, which if the midbrain takes, you know, the stimulus or process the stimulus, then we're engaging our heart and we may have clarity, okay? But if we don't, it goes into the left and right brain, where based on our knowledge, our worldview, and, you know, whatever, then we produce judgment, okay? And the combination of all these things, you know, whether it's judgment or clarity or, you know, whatever emotions or reptilian brain commands, it affects our channels and it feeds back into our thought, into our body, okay? So this is my simple, and, other components of this thing is channel. We're basically channels everywhere, okay, within our body. Loving kindness is everywhere outside of our body and within our body as well as, you know, our heart, right? And the way to connect to loving kindness is actually through the midbrain, okay, or the third eye, as we all call it. Okay, so with this picture in mind, okay, let's go back to pause dissociation. Okay, so external triggers, abuse, right? Chronic abuse as child, or whatever flavor of abuse, right? Sometimes high expectation is another version of abuse. Um, accidents, being dropped as a baby on a concrete, for example, car accidents, right? Accidents, right? That get us to be on the verge of life and death. Okay, animal attacks, being chased by a dog, have a bite on the shin or something like that, right? Triggers absolutely life and death response. Okay, loss of loved ones, okay, severe burns, or war or violence, right, triggers a person. Okay, we don't need to be in the war. We don't need to, but the mere fact that there's war and there's violence in the world that we feel very deeply about, especially for people who have very, very high level of empathy skills, and they involve their left and right brain judging, right, can go into this mode as well. Okay. Surgery, any kind of surgery can potentially trigger life and death um, pause mode. Okay. In fact, Dr. JJ would say, we go into surgery and we take these anesthesias, it actually put us in the pause mode. Okay. Our mind and this highly a mind that's has a lot of willpower, right, can put a person into pause mode. Okay, Parkinson is actually a prime example. Okay, when a person look at himself or herself in the mirror and say, I am not going to feel any pain again in this world. Okay, I'm not going to feel any more pain. Boom, this person goes into pause mode, because in pause mode, there's no feeling of pain. Okay. When all the channels are in the do channel, there's no pain. Okay. That's why a mouse can be so rigid, and the cat can do whatever it wants, and the mouse will remain rigid. Right. Yeah. Illness and pain, for example, a surgery on the knee that blocks the stomach channel can potentially, over time, meaning 10, 20 years, put a person into pause mode, because the stomach channel doesn't flow smoothly, throughout, through the knee down to the toes, and eventually may bounce back. And then, if we have any these judgments or emotions or reptilian brain commands, and eventually our channels will go into pause mode. Okay. So all these in combination, essentially we can term it trauma or something like that, right? Goes into goes into essentially these brains, right, being felt by our body, changes our perspective, right? Install emotional triggers. Our reptilian brain command can be issued, and because they're not executed, they become pending. Our body can get damaged as well, right? Then we go into pause mode, right? Or dissociation, or reptilian brain commands, or all three, all at the same time, right? So the detection, okay, and this is documented in Dr. JJ's book, okay, and I do use them with a slight modification, but in general, this is how it works, okay. So it's actually using our mind, okay. It's basically using our thalamus in the midbrain to feel our body, okay. So the technique is this, okay. And before I mention the technique, I want to mention this, okay. So I read Dr. JJ's book. I know all these techniques, but it took me like 2 years to be able to do it, okay, because I didn't feel I was ready. Again, all these things needs to be true to us, okay. And when we feel like, okay, I know the technique, but I couldn't do it yet, right? we're actually listening to what's inside of us. Okay, it's actually very, very powerful that way. Okay, but anyway, let me go over the technique. Okay, so the technique is using our senses. For example, imagine the tip of the nose being dark. Imagine the tip of the nose being bright. Which way is easier? And it's really just that simple. Okay. And some people will say, oh, I cannot imagine being dark or bright, but I can imagine being warm or cold, right? Or something else. Okay. Whatever they can differentiate, that's the key. Okay. And then let's say if the person can detect the tip of the nose being dark, right? Then we ask, okay, is it dark and flickering, moving, agitating, vibrating, and da, 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 da. Okay. If that's the case, that's a pause, that can be a pause condition. If it's very, very stable and consistently dark, as if we're looking into a cave, it's just pure darkness, there's nothing else but darkness, that's most likely dissociation. Okay. I don't really, Dr. JJ didn't document reptilian brain commands or pending reptilian brain commands, but to me, I don't test it either, okay? Because once we resolve pause and dissociation, we just get a person to release. And that actually shows up in the body as rigidity or limp. Certain parts of the body are just like, there's no connection, okay? Why is there flickering darkness in pause? Okay. So in pause, let's say the mouse is in pause mode, right? From all appearance, the mouse is dead. Okay. But is the mouse really dead? The mouse is not dead, right? The mouse continue to ask several questions. Okay. It continue to monitor the external environment. Is the external environment safe? Okay. Is the cat still around? Okay, can I hear the cat, smell the cat, feel the cat, right? Can I, is the cat still there? Okay. If it determines the cat is not there anymore, the external environment is safe, that condition is checked, okay? External environment is safe. Then we'll go into the next stage. Am I fit for come back to life? Is okay for me to come back to life? Okay. Have I lost too much blood? Okay. Are my body intact? Okay. Am I so severed that I have no point of coming back to life? Okay. Because I'll be just in pain and die anyway. So that's another question, right? So all these questions are in the representation of flickering, agitation, vibrating. And the general direction of the question is, can I come back to life? So when we work with Parkinson patients, right, that's exactly how they feel. They continue to control this agitation, vibration question in very, very deep within themselves. They continue to control, suppress, right, until they couldn't anymore. And then the body start to tremor, right? And the tremor actually correspond to all these questioning, all these like, am I okay to live? So, so in the clinic, right, it's very apparent, like when they are agitated, when they are nervous, when they don't feel safe, boom, they tremor. But in the clinic, when the environment is loving, unconditional, right, they're very, very peaceful. They don't tremor, right? So there are 5 steps of getting out of pause. One is the external environment safe, internal environment safe. If both are answered yes, then it's followed by loud breathing, like, very, very deep, very, very loud breathing, sometimes very, very quick as well, because in pause mode, we suppress the breathing to the nth degree, right? And then bobble the head left and right to activate the parasympathetic nerves, the vagus nerves, okay? And then the spine shivering down the spine like the dog out of water, entire body shake and everything else, right? To shake the, the channels that go into the do channel, right? Redistribute back into all the, where it's supposed to be. Okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay, I'm going to talk to my mom real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, dissociation. Okay, so it's basically the same approach, right? But imagine a certain part, for example, the wrist, right, or the ankle. Okay, where dissociation happen mostly. Okay, and essentially, we basically just regain that focus. So dissociation is almost like, within our brain, we have this, detailed Google map. Okay. And dissociation is really the, it's like, okay, this part of the body, remove this part of the body from the map, right? So then we cannot feel the pain. And because we can't feel the pain, we're not healing either. Okay. Certain parts of the body is not healing, right? So in the clinic, it's, we can see, for example, a it's like a dislocated ankle, right? Or, that happened 40 years ago, right? And we would, really, get the person to reassociate with that ankle again and really start to fix it, right? And there's tremendous amount of pain, right? Very, very interesting. Okay. So the work that we do in the clinic for dissociation is actually quite simple. Okay. So it's like, for example, ankle, right? So get a person to, imagine an ankle being dark, right? And imagine the ankle being bright, and the person say, oh, it's really dark, or I cannot even imagine it, right? So this all point to dissociation. And the work that we do is to say, okay, can you connect to loving kindness? And then from loving kindness, grab this laser light that's full of love and kindness and warmth and everything else that we ever wanted, right? And then focus that, light on the ankle, right? And count to 10. And honestly, within 10 counts, that darkness, that dissociation begin to dissipate. Okay. Most people, and then we basically say, okay, go home and just do this all the time. Do this, as much as you can for the next, week or two, right? And repeat if necessary, right? So let's say if I have eye trouble, right, or I have whatever trouble, right, or especially on one eye or something like that, right? For example, just I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, I went to I study martial arts. So I have a martial art brother, and he said, John, you know what? When I was young, I was, have this jacket fight with my classmate, and he hit the jacket, hit my left eyeball, right? And I just found out, my left eye has very, very poor vision. And I look at it and say, well, do this. Okay, reassociate with your left eyeball first. Okay, then you, actually his small intestine channel wasn't running all the way to his left eyeball. Very interesting. Okay, so when we dissociate from a certain body part, the channel that associate with that body part actually will get blocked. Okay, that's how dissociate. So there's all these modes have channels behind it. Okay, and there's a reason for that, right? So when we restore the channels, everything start to function again. Okay? Yeah. All right. So once we resolve pause and we resolve dissociation, then the pause mode. Okay, so the pause mode, there are 5 steps, right? So most people get stuck. When they get stuck in pause, they're stuck in the second step is, am I safe enough to come back to life? Okay. So the method that we use, or the approach we use in the clinic, is for again, for the person to connect to loving kindness, and then really take a look, right? And in JJ's book, basically she recommend, getting connect to a deceased loved one, for example, and get that person to look at, the dark part, the dark triggering, flickering, agitating, vibrating part, and ask this simple question, okay? Am I gonna die from this in the next 2 to 3 minutes? Okay. It's like, am I going to die from this agitation in the next 2 to 3 minutes? I did this, for example, my daughter, she had a concussion, and we actually go into the brain and look at the brain part, and she said, "Ooh, wow, that feels very spooky over there, right?" And it is vibrating, it is agitating, and I don't feel comfortable even looking at it. I said, take a good look at it, okay? Smile at it, okay? It's part of you, and it's okay, right? And take a look at it, right? And really feel the energy within it, and ask yourself this question, are you going to die from this in the next 2 to 3 minutes? And she did that, and she started to say, "No, Dad, you crazy? I'm not going to die from this in the next 2 to 3 minutes." And I say, "Okay, take a look at this again," right? And I change it a little bit and say, ask yourself and answer this. Are you going to die from this in the next 2 to 3 minutes, right? And she started to laugh, and that is really what we want to do. Is we get a person to laugh at this ridiculous question. Of course, Dad, I'm not going to die from this in the next 2 to 3 minutes. And boom, that part of her body or the brain get out of the pause mode. Okay. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so once a person gets out of the pause mode and dissociation, right, we can resolve the reptilian brain command release. Okay, so again, loving kindness is important. And if if we suffer attack, abuse, or something like that, for example, or abused by our parents, it's important that we connect to loving kindness and connect to the heart of gold of our parents. Okay, before the reptilian brain command release, we cannot say, I hate that person, I hate I hate this, and I hate this, and I want to release my reptilian brain command, the pending reptilian brain commands. To me, that doesn't work. Okay, so this is why I reserve this until maybe weeks, even month after a pause and dissociation was resolved. Okay, because this person needs to resolve their essentially the database, right? The data bank, the knowledge data bank, the perspectives, right? All the emotional triggers before we can resolve this. Because here's the thing, okay? If life is not safe, if we're in pause mode, okay, and we feel life is not safe, okay, we feel something's going to happen to us, and we don't know when, we don't know where, okay, we cannot relax. We cannot be well. We cannot sleep through the night. We have to be rigid. We have to be hyper vigilant. So if a person, so I actually have a patient call me and say, like, "John, you know what? I know I was tight. I know I was in fight and flight, right? I know I was, this and this, right? But now I have panic attack. What's going on, right? Why am I getting worse, right?" I said, then I asked him, it's like, did you do something within the last week that get you to relax? And your body feels so good for hours. And he said, yeah. I I took CBD and I slept through the night, for the first time in 40 or whatever, in decades. I said, that would do the trick. Okay. When your perspective of life is not safe and your body is slipping through the night, it is not allowed. Your channels, your brain is going to issue commands to say, okay, up all the stress hormones to get you in panic. You need to get back to that sense of urgency. You need to get back to fight and flight. You're not allowed to sleep through the night. So knowing all these things, okay, and I know we all learn to be, tremendous practitioners, right? But we need to, without taking these into account and say, oh, you are so tight and we're going to relax you, we may very well be doing our patients a tremendous disservice. Okay. Yeah. So it takes a lot of courage to get out of these modes. Okay. A lot of courage. So so I actually, I actually want to print out these T-shirts. Okay. I have a purpose in whatever forms, okay, to get our sense of courage, to get this fundamental anger to come back into our life, okay? Anger protects our boundaries, okay? And love hurts when it's conditional. This doesn't mean we're not gonna love. It means we're gonna have the courage to love so that we can love unconditionally, okay? And unconditionally is to really to connect differently, not to connect to people's behaviors and words anymore, but to their heart of gold. It takes a lot of courage to do that, but it can be done. Okay. So based on this, my framework, right? I want to. So to me, there's a suffering loop. Okay. So most of the patients that we see, perhaps even our own self, can easily get stuck, right, in this loop, and we can't get out. Okay. And here's the reason. So originally, the external stimulus comes in as trauma, for example, right, enter our senses and get into our brain system, reptilian brain, limbic brain, and because we bypass our midbrain, which has clarity and heart and connect to loving kindness, we automatically goes into the left and right brain, and based on prior knowledge and everything else, we continue to judge, right? Then this affects our channel and gets feedback into our thought and body. And this by itself becomes the new stimulus and continue this loop, okay? That's why decades later, we can still, we can be in a room that's totally quiet and safe without any external stimulus, and we can't sleep, okay? Suffering at some point does not require any external stimulus. The person who has caused us to install these triggers, for example, these emotional triggers or these life-changing perspective have long gone, okay? They're already dead or disappeared, but we continue to suffer, okay? Does it have its purpose? Absolutely, okay? Suffering to me has tremendous sense, tremendous profound purpose, right? Because without suffering, we don't seek, right? Without suffering, and suffering itself has a lot of energy within this, right? So we can, in the clinic, honestly, I see this very often, is a person can jump, right? Almost instantaneously, because channels change instantaneously, right? They change from the suffering loop all the way, all of a sudden they go into the epiphany loop, okay? Epiphany loop has exactly the same path, except we're using the midbrain. So left and right brain, based on the knowledge, is in the conscious domain, right? That's why we can, we know what we know, right? But what we don't know are in the subconscious. And the midbrain sits in between the conscious and subconscious. So the midbrain, because it doesn't judge, whatever that comes out of the midbrain is a sense of clarity. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. and people ask, like, why are you doing this? I don't know. I have no idea why, but it's crystal clear to me, this is what I'm going to do. That answer, okay, that clarity comes out of the subconscious. In the subconscious, we have this limbic brain that's, has all these emotional triggers, but it also has all the wisdom that we all need, all the answers that we ever need, answer to every situation. Midbrain does what's most empowering at the present time. Not the right or wrong, it does whatever that's most empowering at the present time. And moments later, it may change, but it will be, again, most empowering at the present time. Okay, so to me, this is really the key. Okay, this is the key for our cultivation, is to activate the midbrain, which is, again, activated or energized by the do channel. And our heart is actually energized profoundly by the REN channel as well. And then we'll have clarity. Then the midbrain and the left and right brain can work together. Because the left and right brain are dominated by gallbladder channel and UB channel, right? Bladder channel. So you see that how, again, I mean, how channels, when we have channel in mind, right, things are crystal clear because they map precisely, into how we feel. Okay, not just from a theory standpoint, but how we feel emotionally. So when the person, go from the suffering loop to the epiphany, the midbrain dominated loop, right? There's no issue. The sky is open all of a sudden. Very, very interesting. Okay. Okay. So, cultivation. Okay. So how do we cultivate this, right? So let's say based on this, this framework against, if it resonates with you, please use it. Integrate it into your own TrueCM, and then you be practicing from truth, your own truth. Okay, to me that's so important. So the left and right brain is based on this knowledge bank, right? So so my suggestion is to say, okay, I have four guiding principle, I guess, right? Loving kindness is everywhere. Okay, purpose, everyone, I have a purpose. Okay, I have a purpose is not a question. Okay, it's not something that needs to get confirmed. If I'm the smallest blade of grass in the giant, forest, right? I have a purpose. Human is the only, human is the only living thing that doubts its own purpose. Why? Because we compare. It's like, oh, I'm the smallest blade of grass. Oh my goodness, that tree is so huge, right? I produce, it produces in 1 second, the oxygen that I can produce my entire being, my entire life. I'm so small. I have no purpose. Might as well just kill myself, right? I have a purpose. Judgment, right? This left and right brain judgment, comparison. What is right, what is wrong, and get us to severely doubt our own purpose. We have a purpose. If I have my very last breath, I inhale, I exhale, I continue to connect to loving kindness, continue to connect to the people I love, I have a purpose. Whoever that's in my presence will feel that tremendous, tremendous peace and calm. So I have a purpose. Do not ever give that up. Everyone has a heart of gold, including myself. We have this paradox because we have a body that can, that's guaranteed to fail, right? We have a body that's guaranteed to fail. So the left and right brain's job, right? The ego's job is to keep this body as intact and functional as possible. Unfortunately, the paradox is our heart can never be, the heart is gold. Okay? The heart can never be changed, basically. It's always golden. Okay? It's bright and it's just pure light. So our paradox is we see ourselves, including our heart, as our part of our body that can be damaged, hurt, destroyed, broken, and everything else. Okay. Our heart is always golden. So that's one of my guiding principles. Okay. And the last one is we all have a choice at any time. How many times in the clinic, we hear this, it's like, I have no choice. No choice, no power. Okay, no power, no healing. Period. Okay, no power, no forward movement. It might as well just say, okay, if you don't feel like you have a choice, and there's no way you can change anything within you or without you, right? We might as well just end the session right now. There's no point in moving forward if you feel you have no choice. People who want to kill themselves, come and see me, right? They say, I want to kill myself. It's, my response is very simple. I will look at this person and I will smile and I will say, that's one of the choices. And it is one of the choices, okay? But would you consider others? Are you courageous enough to do that, right? Do you feel very, very deep within yourself, there's a voice that there are absolutely other choices. But your left and right brain convince you or try to convince you that you have tried everything, and nobody freaking cares. So to me, it's interesting, okay? So these 4 guiding principles that I use, loving kindness, which is everywhere, within and without us. Purpose, I always have a purpose. You always have a purpose. Everyone always have a purpose. Does cancer have its purpose, right? All the killing in the world has its purpose. All the suffering in the world has its purpose. Absolutely. Do we know what it is? We may never know. But we have a purpose. Everything has a purpose. With a sense of purpose, that everything has a purpose, we'll automatically have gratitude. Okay, this gratitude doesn't come from like, oh, I'm so grateful. No, it comes from deep within, like there's a purpose of my life. Everything I've ever perceived, everything I've ever experienced, there's a purpose for it. I may never know, but I know there's one. Okay. Heart of gold, choice. Okay, so that's how I use these 4 guiding principles to evaluate, reflect, and refine and change, what's in my knowledge database. Okay, everything I've ever learned, I wanna, shine a light with these 4 guiding principles and say, do these knowledge really serve me? Right? Or are they in conflict with my guiding principles? If they're in conflict, I honestly, in the conscious and left and right brain, this is in my conscious level, right? I can change them very easily. Okay. To activate our midbrain is very simple, actually. It's just one simple question. Okay. It's like, what's the most important thing I can do right now? What's the most important thing I can do right now? Okay. Because our left and right brain doesn't understand what empowering means. It only knows right and wrong. It doesn't understand now because everything, it's based on past experience, history. Okay? Everything that left and right brain work, the only database it has are all past experience or knowledge. So it doesn't understand now. So when we ask this question, what's the most important thing I can do right now? Only midbrain have access to this. Only midbrain can handle this question. We may not have the answer right away, but please be patient because our midbrain is working into the subconscious. It's looking for answers. The answer may come back, 10 seconds later, 10 days later, 10 years later, but we will have a tremendous answer that's full of wisdom. So this is how we begin to trust our midbrain, to really go deep, to say, I have answers. I may not know why that answer is, but I have answers. I'm going to activate my midbrain. I'm going to allow my midbrain to come into this loop. Okay. The most beautiful loop is midbrain is part of this. The midbrain will come up with clarity, give us a direction of where we're going, and give it to left and right brain to say, hey, this is where we're going. We're going to Paris, this March. Figure out how we can get there and what we're going to do there. And left and right brain are excellent in doing that. Excellent. Okay, so to go deeper into the subconscious, the limbic brain operates, again, this is my framework, okay? It may not be substantially supported, but this is how I work, what I work with. And if I need to modify, I will, okay? So the limbic brain generates emotions based on triggers that's installed, and all the triggers to me have at least three properties, okay? One is they're persistent, meaning they never get out of date, okay? They're protective. Their goals are to protect us, okay? They're not there as evil, egos or whatever, to mess us up, to generate all these negative emotions, hatred, jealousy, shame, regrets, and whatever. No, they're there to protect us, okay? And the third is they're global, meaning maybe my dad or my mom, did something to me that get these triggers installed, right? But you know what? They're not just applied to my mom and dad. They apply to anybody fits my mom and dad's attribute. For example, authority, okay? Anybody who's gonna give me a task, okay? Anybody who rank higher above me, give me a task, right? This will get triggered. So and we have no access to these triggers because they're in our subconscious, but we can feel the results of these triggers in terms of emotions. So the key to gain access to these triggers and to truly modify them, to say, thank you so much for years and decades and even lifetimes of protection, but you know what? I don't need this anymore, okay? We don't need to persist. This persistent triggers is out of date, okay? We go to the supermarket and there's a limit of, best used by, 2024, right? All the triggers have, constant use for infinity. But when we embrace our emotions fully, honor them, write them down, grab a pen, grab a pencil, grab a paper and grab a notebook and just start to write them down. This is how I feel. Today is, this day, and I feel this way. And, this person did this to me, but it hits one of the triggers within me, or many, many triggers, or dominoes of triggers. So now I'm in this emotional state, and I describe this fully without judgment. At the end, I write down what's the most important thing I can do right now in the face of all these emotions, because I felt them before, over and over and over again. I'm going to break this loop. This is how we get into our subconscious, get into the triggers, and really have this clarity to say, oh, no, wow, I feel this way because I used to use this to protect myself. But there's no need for that right now because I'm safe and I have a heart of gold. I can never, ever be hurt. Thank you for all these protections, but you know what? I can never, ever be hurt. Then we allow our subconscious to harmonize itself again. Okay. And the reptilian brain command release is just, again, loving kindness. We all have a heart of gold, right? Connect to the person that caused us harm, right? Abuse us, assault us, right? Connect to the heart of gold of this person, not the behaviors or words. Connect, okay? This to me is very, very important. Okay? So in the clinic, I will get a person to lay on the table, right? And do this first step is connect to loving kindness, have a sense of purpose in your heart, right? And you're going to choose to connect to that person, wherever that person is. Could be your stepdad that molested you while your mom and brother was in the room next door. Connect to your stepdad's heart of gold. He has the worst behaviors, but he has a heart of gold. And if you can do that, then you start to raise your hand, push him away. You start to do whatever you feel like doing, whatever your reptilian brain command you to do. Shout at the top of your lungs to say, stop it. Release everything that your protective reptilian brain issued. This is actually one of the highly dramatic stage in my clinic, okay? One time a person seriously, was very, very suppressing her vocal cord, speaking a very, very faint voice. After at the end of this reptilian brain command release, with this very, very deep, powerful voice, stop this. And my clinic has 4 very, very big windows, and they were all vibrating. They were all going, okay. And she's never the same. Okay, so once a person's release, the pending reptilian brain commands, there's a tremendous sense of tranquility, peace. It's like I don't need to suppress all this energy within me anymore. This why, this almost like impulse of shouting and hitting people and it doesn't have to control this anymore. Okay. And lastly, for the cultivation is our body. Okay, really it's about channels. Okay, getting channels to work. Right, no dissociation, no pause conditions. Right. And if there's any scars, we do the scar treatments. Okay, scar treatments are very, very important. Um, uh, and again, needling scars, for example. I'll just talk briefly. Okay, for example, C-sections. C-sections essentially affects the DO channel, right? The kidney channel, stomach channel, spleen channel, liver channel, and potentially even gallbladder channel. Okay. So it needs to be needle. Why? Because scar tissues are higher resistance. The keloid tissues, they're higher resistance that the channels, because they're electrical, they get impeded. Okay. So with that in mind, all the scar needling is along the channel path. Okay, not like doing this turtle surrounded or whatever. Okay, if the scar is big and and go through it, go through the middle of the scar. Okay, but it has to be along the channel path, restore the channel flow. Yeah. Okay, so lastly, I have 2, I actually took photos of all these hummingbirds right at home. And to me, this is actually, most of the treatments out there, most of the treatment that we think we need are for healing. Okay? But to me, what we are truly seeking, ideally, is to reveal our true nature, which is our heart of gold. Because our hearts are not damaged. Okay? Our heart can still love at any moment we want. Okay? So this sense of revealing give us a lot more power than healing, because healing, we need somebody. Okay, we're broken in the first place. So there's injustice that was done to us. But if we choose, or if we set out our seeking path to reveal our true nature, okay, we'll have epiphany, we'll have enlightenment, and things will happen instantaneously. Okay. So hopefully we all, pursue essence and find truth in whatever we do, and truly, and practice our own TrueCM. Yeah. Okay, that's the entire, that's what I prepared. Okay. Give me one more minute. Okay, I'm going to talk to my mom real quick, and if there's any question, I'll be happy to answer it. Okay, hang on one second. All righty. Any question? Yeah. Or comments?
I'm just going to jump in here, John, and say thank you so much for this presentation. I feel like I've had a big full meal of plenty of courses to chew on, digest, to integrate into my work. I love the clarity of your visuals. I love the way that you invoke loving kindness and heart of gold, all these practices that you bring into your treatment. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to explain what you've been thinking about. I find it very, very enriching for thinking about my work too. So just a deep bow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned your work on vision, right? So vision from a channel standpoint, vision, small intestine channel goes through our eyes, okay? And small intestine channels come from heart channel, which comes from spleen channel, okay? So there's a condition in the clinic that I see very often is righteousness, okay? So when a person is righteous, the spleen channel actually gets stuck right at the lower edge of the our ribs, okay, right at the lower ribs, because otherwise it will actually go into the heart, energize the heart. So when we're righteous, we're not allowed to be kind. We're not allowed to be loving. So that's why I have this picture here is like, when we are right, be kind, okay, not be righteous. And once the heart channel is deficient, right, small intestine has no energy to nourish the eyes. So we don't see choices, which is very, very interesting, right? So if you think about like being righteous, it's really, okay, the heart needs to be cold, right? And righteous is like, that's the only way to resolve this issue, is to eliminate whatever that's in front of us.
Yeah.
So we don't see choices, right? And small intestine channel is, where our choices come from. It's very, very interesting, so.
Interesting. Thank you for that insight. I love it.
So when you do your work, right, it's not, yes, the eye have symptoms, right? Whatever symptoms, right? But if you check the entire path, right, from spleen, so see if this person has digestion issues, right? Because when the spleen gets blocked right there, it's almost like liver qi gets blocked, right? It attacks the stomach. The spleen energy, when it gets blocked, it actually attacks the stomach, attack the liver, attack the gallbladder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they will have all these combinations of symptoms, right? And plus the eye issue, right? Yeah. So when we put these things together, you know, it's very, very interesting, right? And so what I like to do in the clinic is almost like telling a story, right? A person coming with eye issues or with whatever issue, we build a life story first, right? That include all this, you know, all the emotional things and all the trainings and all the cultures and everything, right? We want that's why I have this framework is I want to build a lifetime story. And if this person resonate, that means my treatment may have, to me, um, that's how a treatment to me, will naturally come out of a life story,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I just resolve whatever that's, signs and symptom, to me, I'm missing an opportunity for me and for that person to work together. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I totally agree. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you
that.
so
Yeah,
much. I really appreciate this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just one thing really quickly, John.
Yes.
It's 7:30 at night here in
Mhm.
France.
Yes.
So I need to kind of get going. I don't want to stop the conversation, but I just want to thank you for your time today. And I look forward to doing this with you again
Yeah.
whenever the opportunity arises.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
All righty.
Bye, John. It's Khadija.
Hey, Kay.
Hey, I just wanted to add my voice. I have nothing else to say.
Well,
Hi.
yeah, we're connected. Okay.
I know.
Yeah, we're lighthouses.
Yeah, I think about you all the time. More than think about you, I try to stay in this practice. And so, like, people are always like, what are you doing? And I tell them. So I'm like, check out this guy, John Chu. I did, I tell them I had this type of session. I heard this workshop and I began to do like this. And this is what I observed.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been a trip.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
In my heart, this will, I'll be grateful if this is applied to addiction, because to me, addiction is a person's intuitive intuition to resolve issues within, with all the conflict within, right? So all the conflicts within the triggers, right, within the subconscious, right, within the like the pending reptilian brain commands, for example, right, that they're trying to suppress and trying to get away from, right. So to me, if we can bring those into the picture, right, I think to me that, because I people that are very, very close to me are actually in these modes, right, and get stuck in the addiction cycle. So yeah, anyway,
I could talk to you for so long. I mean, I think it's in the future. It's in the future.
Yeah.
Do you remember that was the first thing I ever thought when I saw you, and I just kind of scurried away. I was like, no, you have to go back to class. I think you'll talk to this guy for 3 hours. And sure enough, the first time I went there, it was 3 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, yeah, I knew it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so if there's any other topics that you can recommend, right? I would love to have these these presentations on a weekly basis, if possible. Right? I would really love to have this.
Are you kidding me? That'd be so fun. You
Yeah.
would make that much time? That's awesome. Yeah, let me start to think.
Yeah.
Amy and I talk a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have a lot of topics.
Yeah.
That come up.
Yeah. Honestly, we can have discussions, right, based on something like this. I would love to have this. I would love to build a video library where we share these things,
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. Cool. All
How's
right.
your mom?
Yeah.
Your mom okay?
My mom is, I need to get back to her. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I think so too. I'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty. Okay. Take care. Love you.
Bye.
All right.
Love you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Nasuki. I'm gonna close the session.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad you finally did it in English.
Yeah, that's
I've
right.
waited,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.